Do more by doing less. With me, Charles Alexander, for small business owners, startups, and busy folks.
Looks like you've been missing a lot of work lately.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
Clark, that's the gift that keeps on giving the whole year.
I could not believe what these two old men were doing. So I had to go home, get some sleep. And then I came back to the house that we had just bought, our very first home. We were rehabbing it because that's what we do. We buy houses and we rehab them. And I saw my father-in-law and his brother had painted all through the night. Father-in-law, mentioned this in a previous episode, call him Pawpaw. His brother, they're not twins, but man, you wouldn't know it. They look, walk, talk, and sound just alike. They both look just like Joe Namath, and they are high-strung like a couple of 3-year-olds on Skittles, and they're just wired. They painted all through the night. So I show up, I feel guilty because it's my house. I had to go home and sleep. They're just cranking along, mid-60s. They're just painting. Guys, y'all been painting? Yeah, we painted all night. And they're having a ball. They're giggling and laughing like little schoolgirls. So, well, do you want me to at least go get you something to eat? My father-in-law said, yes, that'd be great. If you could go to Sonic right down the road, he gave me exact orders. All right, I'm going to head out. And then his brother, Mike, by the way, Mike, I taught the kids his name was Uncle Pawpaw because, that was funny. They look, walk, talk, sound alike instead of telling him his Uncle Mike, Uncle Pawpaw, which is really cute. To correct him one day because I didn't realize they didn't know the difference. They were just that little. They thought that was his name. And I remember we were on vacation. And if you can tell, I have a southern drawl, and so do my children. And we're out at some, Midwest state. And one of the kids looks over at me and says, hey, is Uncle Pawpaw going to be on? He going to call us tonight? And you could just see the people around us like, ugh, bumpkins. So we were enforcing a stereotype. Sorry, side note. Anywho, Pawpaw and Uncle Pawpaw had painted, and Uncle Pawpaw, Mike, started laughing and said, don't let him lie to you, send you down to Sonic. I already went down there earlier. We ate so much we're stuffed, couldn't finish what we had. And my father, no, we didn't. Oh, yes, we did. No, we did not. I'm hungry. They just went back and forth like brothers. I said, you're not tricking me. My father-in-law always likes to play tricks on me. I wouldn't let him play another trick on me, even if he did paint all through the night. I wasn't buying him 2 breakfasts. So moved on about the way, and I started rehabbing another portion of the house, leaving my potentially hungry or not hungry father-in-law to himself. When you rehab a home, like they were doing and we were doing, you don't just skip around and do a little in each room, and you cluster or you batch like items together. So this first house that we bought from the cat lady who had her kids, grandkids, and even great grandkids and a ton of cats living there, didn't really get to take care of it. House was, as you hear, has good bones, but needed really just cleaning up. So the first thing we did, go in, you strip out all the carpet. Ooh, it was gross, by the way. Stripped out all the carpet, all the padding, and then, you clean that up a little bit. And then you replace whatever other fixtures you need to. In this case, there were some countertops that needed to be replaced and some trim work that needed to be done. And then you work on maybe some of the fixtures if that's what you want to do next. And then you paint all at once, and then you reinstall flooring. And I know there's arguments about when you should or shouldn't do that. That's how we did it. Anyways, how would it look if you wanted to rehab a house, but then you started in the living room? Well, let's start painting. All right, well, you paint that wall, and I'll go over here, and I'll start pulling up carpet. Then about halfway through the day, you get bored and say, let's go over here to the bathroom. Let's work on some plumbing. And then you get a little bored doing that. Then you go into the garage, and, you start hanging, shelves. It would take you forever. You'd never make much progress. You'd be busy all the time. Most importantly, you'd be frustrated. That sounds silly for you to rehab a house that way, but that's how we work every single day. We don't cluster items together. We don't batch items together. We just bounce around from project to project. Most of us, I don't do this anymore, but most of us will roll over out of bed first thing in the morning and check your phone. Future episode on why we don't do that. And then you start checking email right away. And then you get bored with that and you go to text messages. And then you get bored with that and you go check your DMs. And then you get bored with that. And then you start working on, let's say, a project that you were supposed to do for a client. And then you research, and then you get bored with that. And then you start creating a bit of content, and then you get bored with that. And then you'll schedule a meeting, and you'll go to a meeting, and you'll get on the phone, and then you'll check your phone while you're doing that. You're skipping around. You're doing the equivalent of painting a room, hanging a light fixture, replacing a toilet. It doesn't work. Clustering like tasks together makes you 60% more productive. That's according to research that I just made up. Seriously, there's a ton of online data that show that if you batch like items together, you'll get into a flow of doing those tasks all at the same time. You'll feel better. They will be accomplished quicker. You'll have done a better job and you'll save time. Why don't we do that now? Well, we like skipping around, especially if you've come from a corporate job or God forbid you're still in a corporate job. You don't always have control of your schedule, and somebody else has made you go to a meeting here and made you check your email because you have an overbearing boss that wants you to reply within 2 hours or whatever. And we get used to that concept and we just skip. And it makes us feel like we've added variety to the day, which is the biggest argument and excuse I get. Well, Charles, I like to have a little variety in my day and I like to do a little of this, a little of that. And it just, it just really works for me. And then you take a look at their revenue and you can tell it does not work for them. So talking about research, Gloria Mark is a professor in the Department of Informatics at the University of California, Irvine. She did this famous study, Google it, where they tracked, a large group of people for 5 days. And they were tracking their browser history and they had them strapped to beepers and they were looking at how they did if they were just let loose on a specific project, and then how they did if they were continuously interrupted. And they'd interrupt these people and, say, all right, stop doing what you're doing. I need you to go check this email. Stop doing, we're going to go to a meeting. And we're going to do whatever. And then they would track how long it took them to get refocused to the same level that they were at before they left. And on average, it would take 23 minutes to get back to the task to the same level of depth that you had before. And there's a ton of research that shows now that we are interrupted and we self-interrupt. That's the big thing I'm talking about here, about every 3 to 4 minutes, which means we never get to a deep level of work on anything. We're just skipping around all day. Those days where your spouse may say, hey, did you have a good day? Yeah, just so busy. Well, what'd you do? I don't really know. And sometimes we get proud of that. Don't be proud of that. So we have to figure out a way that we can cluster like items together, batch them together, and then do them all at one time when humanly possible. For me, I have figured out that my email marketing and social media and even some content creation is best done on the last day of the month. And I schedule it all for the following month. Now, for me, I do a ton of LinkedIn Lives and I do a ton of podcasting, as you hopefully are listening or watching. And we take that, me and my team, got a whole podcast on outsourcing and automation, and we break it all down. And once it's all broken down, I am still the one who likes to do some of the scheduling. So I get it out there and I create email marketing once a week, put it all into my email automation system. And then I, find stuff I want to automate and upload and schedule to LinkedIn. Got to crank Instagram back up, schedule it there. And it's all done at one time. And I'm waiting until, that end of the month when I'm in the flow of it and I don't let everything else pop in. Make no mistake, as soon as I get started, I immediately think, I need to check my email real quick. There's somebody who was supposed to message me on LinkedIn. And my brain wants me to do that. My brain is constantly looking for the next saber-toothed tiger. It gets bored. It wants to hop and skip because that's the way I have trained my poor brain. It's like sitting in a slot machine and just continuously hitting the button. I still pretend to crank, but you hit the button over and over because you want that next dopamine hit. Sitting and thinking for long periods of time has gotten difficult, and it's become more difficult. But that's where the money is. That's where the happiness is. That's where the hours are saved. That's where we can find freedom. And anybody who can sit and think and focus going into the future from right now forever, especially if there's, God forbid, a high school kids listening to this, and I'm sure they're not. But if you are, pass it along to them. If you want to differentiate yourself into the employment world or as an entrepreneur, be able to sit and focus and think for long periods of time. A, it'll make you happier. And B, you'll destroy the competition. Other things I batch now, cluster, check email twice a day. I do not go back and forth and check it over and over and over. And this was really hard at first. So I had to, First I was like everybody else. I check it multiple times a day, every day, but I had to wean myself off that, get it down to 6, get it down to 4, down to 2. 2's about the right spot. I don't check it first thing in the morning, because if you check it first thing in the morning, you are on everybody else's to-do list. If you have trained your clients or your employees to get instant feedback from you, it's time to start retraining them. And no, they will not all go away. And if you have a couple of customers that will fire you right away, you probably should fire them already. Once around lunch and once at the end of the day, and you'll realize there's a lot of those emails that you didn't have to do anything with. Podcasting. This podcast I'm doing now, I'm doing several of these in a row. Pick out a good Friday of a month and just crank them out. Get up super early. And for me, my energies, as soon as I hop up, for some reason, I guess it's my old man energy kicking in, I'm ready to talk. So I go straight into the office, lock everything out, crank out podcast episodes, client advising. Do a lot of that on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 1 and 3. Why? Because in the mornings, that's my most creative time for content creation, working on workshops, doing some kind of research that I need to delve deep into. That's not that I don't use a lot of energy for my client advising, but my client advising is something that I can do almost instantaneously, or I can be reinvigorated. And it works really well is, instead of doing just a bunch of admin tasks in the afternoon, schedule that for them. Sales calls, I crank all of those out once a week, put them all on the calendar. That's what time I let people schedule it. And same concept. Once I get into the flow of closing sales and talking to people and getting them on the phone, and I'm in the groove of it, you ever notice when you do that sometimes that you can start closing a lot more sales, that the last objection you didn't quite have the answer to, but now that you're on the next call, you suddenly do because you thought of it since then. And instead of skipping around, you're in that flow. And then writing, I wrote a book. To get that book finished, I created a couple of flow days. I know that's cheesy, but I would go to different rooms of the house. Say, all right, dining room, I'm writing this chapter on financials. Give myself an hour, lock it in, do it. Move to the bonus room, move to the back porch. And that was a few of those flow days helped me actually get that thing done where it was just kind of looming over my head otherwise. And this isn't just for me. I've done this for clients. I had a financial advisor client. He'd check his email, Andy. Andy would check his email 15 to 20 times a day. And he kept telling me how important it was because the markets were moving. Yet he also told his clients not to jump in and out of the markets, and they needed to stay diversified and rebalanced. So that didn't really make a lot of sense that he needed to check his email because the markets were moving. And he'd work a little on portfolios until he got bored. And he'd sprinkle clients in and out throughout the week. And he'd go to random networking events just whenever he had time. And he'd follow prospects just really randomly, created content whenever he had a moment, which he didn't. Check the time on Andy's phone. He's on there 7 hours a day. Andy was exhausted. So what did we do with him? First, you had to figure out where all of his time was going. That's, again, a different podcast, but you should listen to figure out where your time is going. And then let's batch some of these things that you're not going to outsource or automate. Make some minor adjustments. Got him down to checking his email just 4 or 5 times a day. That's still too much, but big work for him. Clustered his portfolio work. For those of you not financial advisors, when you take a look at your client's portfolio, look at their time horizon. Basically, when are they going to need the money? And then help them adjust their portfolio to match those goals, to spread it out among different types of asset classes. It's the work that's the real work. We also batched up his client visits and found 2 networking events that he could go to back to back that still made sense. And he'll still randomly create content, and it still looks like he's randomly creating content. But he saved time, and he's saving money, and he's making himself a whole lot happier. So 3 steps for you to quit skipping around between tasks like a toddler on Skittles. First, you got to identify where your time's going. Then take a look at what can I cluster together. Easy layup things, your email, your sales calls, content creation, the actual work that you do. Find the time of day, if it's creative work, that works best for you. Most folks, it's early morning. I always joke, I think Sarah's best time to have a deep conversation with me is about 10:30 at night, or right as I'm walking out the door, because that's when she tries to bring up something that we have to have a real chat about, and it's my worst time. That spousal things has nothing to do with the episode. Hopefully she didn't listen to this one. And then thirdly, just expand it from there. Get some low-hanging fruit that's easy for you to do. And then once you see that it works for you, then expand from there. Quit jumping around. Jumping around is a trap. If you want to do more by doing less, you got to cluster like items together. As far as Pawpaw and Uncle Pawpaw, turns out Uncle Pawpaw was playing a trick. They hadn't eaten anything that day, and they were both starving. It was just funny to him to make sure that his brother didn't get anything to eat, even if that meant he didn't get anything to eat either. Wait, don't run off just yet. Do me a big favor, hit the little plus sign to subscribe, scroll down wherever you are, and leave a very honest 5-star review and tell other people why they should be listening. And if you don't, an angel may in fact lose its wings. True story. Have a great day.